Hey guys, welcome to my new movie review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the new Will Smith sport drama, Concussion. I apologize that this review is much later than planned. Just finally getting around to reviewing it, so I apologize for that. So, in this film, Concussion, it's based off a true story about a pathologist who is asked to do an autopsy on a famous NFL player, and he realizes just how young this NFL player is when he passed away. Um, and he finds out about this brain trauma that was choking the brain for him and was kind of affecting the way he was thinking and how he died so young and how he really was for the most part healthy, and there was really just things that were going on within his brain from these concussions that he was having as a football player that really caused the death more than anything. And when he finds out that that's kind of a reoccurring pattern within other NFL players that are dying, that he's also doing autopsies for, he's finding out that there's this thing called C.T.E that he starts labeling it. At least that's what he starts calling it. So C.T.E is when there's too many concussions or too many bad head injuries to the brain that ultimately kill off that person over time and makes them think the way that they shouldn't be thinking. And basically, it's our own little discovery of finding out that people really weren't meant to play football this way, that, all these brain injuries um, really kind of hurt this person in more ways than one. And so he's trying to get the word out to both the NFL and the people of the US and people who just love football in general that all these concussions and all these head injuries that these football players are suffering from really have to come to an end, because otherwise it's going to ruin the football sport forever. And so the NFL tries to label this guy as crazy. They tried to hide it. They kind of know what's going on really behind the scenes, but they don't really want people to know about it. And then there's the people side of it where, like, well, why is the NFL doing this to us? Why did they not tell us about this? And then the football players who had families are now concerned about the NFL, and they're also concerned about everyone else's safety now. So there's this huge debate of, who do we trust? Do we trust this Dr. Amala guy that not a lot of people know about? Is he really trustworthy about the whole thing? Or do we got to listen to the NFL? They've been doing this for a while. They kind of know what they're doing. They're more established. They're more trusted. So there's this huge line of who do we trust and who do we not trust. And Dr. Amala and the people of the NFL had this huge fight about it. And it really came down to what's more important, the money, the athletes, or the people out there who are potentially getting killed over this. So I really liked the film Concussion, you guys. I thought it was a very well done movie. I thought the Dr. Amala person and character in the movie that Will Smith played were both very effective, very interesting man. I've seen some small interviews about the real Dr. Amala, and he really, really cared about people. He liked the sport of football, and he really did not want people to get hurt over it anymore. He really just wanted to get the word out about all of this so that people who do want to play football and people who are playing football are aware of C.T.E, and that by playing football in a certain way that you shouldn't be playing it, it can really hurt you in more ways than one. So overall, guys, for my positives and negatives on Concussion, I thought it was easy to understand both Dr. Amala's perspective and the NFL's perspective on CTE. Both of them have great arguments. The NFL was worried about shutting down, and that, all these charity services that they offer and all these scholarships that they offer would all come to an end if Dr. Amala's theory and discovery about CTE were to get revealed to people. And then Dr. Amala was on the side with, well, people are getting killed. This is happening more than once. It wasn't all about this one football player. It's multiple football players. It keeps happening. It's happening every month. It's happening every week. It's people are getting killed. And he was worried that it's basically a kind of a secondhand murder in a way, just because the NFL was letting this happen, and that, these helmets weren't secure and the uniforms weren't secure, and the way that they were playing football was just not safe. And so it's easy to understand both sides of the argument, because one's saying, people are getting killed about this and we need to do something, while the other side saying, we're making money, we're getting famous, and we're going to continue to happen that way, and we're going to label you as crazy so that our business doesn't shut down. So basically, it's easy to understand both sides of the argument, and there's kind of neither side is right, but neither side is wrong. They're both right and wrong in a way, and it's kind of a split way of how this thing was handled and how it was handled. So another positive I had about the movie was it explores the professional and personal life of Dr. Amala. I like how the film really just wasn't about this discovery. I liked how we got to learn about Dr. Amala, how his personal life got established, how he started up a relationship. They even go back to when he did start a relationship, which I thought was kind of neat. Um, they show kind of how dancing and music are important to him, how his apartment really, there's not a lot to his apartment, it's just very simple. He has a TV, but he doesn't like to use it. So there's small little details about him they include into the screenplay of the movie. And I thought they explored the life of Dr. Amala in a very interesting way. I also liked the medical science in the movie, and I liked how the medical science was explained in the movie correctly. There's a way that they had to handle this to make it work. There's certain parts where if they didn't explain it correctly, it would have been kind of hard to follow how Dr. Amala came to conclusions with this theory and how he figured out that football players were getting killed off with this. And I thought it was explained very well. He explains it very detailed and very easily for us to understand. So I liked how the medical science of the movie was explained correctly and easily in a way that most people who see the film are going to understand it. This is also a very tense and curious film. The film is always curious about, well, how did this happen? How did we come to this conclusion and all this other stuff? And it's also tense because we know that this Dr. Amala guy got in a lot of trouble with the NFL over this, and that um, this story really didn't come to light until this movie got made. The NFL really didn't feel comfortable about this, and Dr. Amla really wanted people to know about this, and he didn't have as much credit as the NFL did, and he didn't have as much credit as this pathologist. And so it was one of those stories where it's very tense and very curious, and it works well in both ways. Another thing I wanted to say in a positive note too is I thought Alec Baldwin, Albert Brooks, I think David Morse is his name, the guy who's from the movie Contact. All of them gave great performances here, as well as Will Smith gave a great performance here too. Another negative, on to my negatives for Concussion. The first one I had a negative wise for Concussion. Oh, this is about the negatives. So we're on to the negatives. There was some inconsistent details I thought throughout the movie. One of them was about lab budgets. The character of Dr. Amala does talk about this, and there's something going on with his boss in one scene about it, but it doesn't. The way that the lab budgets are handled, or at least the way the movie explained it to us, you wouldn't think there would be a budget or a budget problem that Dr. Amala had when he made the C.T.E discovery, but somehow the film tries to go about that. So as far as details go, it's not very careful because a lot of the things that Dr. Amala needed time for to discover C.T.E, he had all the things ready to go from the previous times he did autopsies earlier in the movie. So that detail really didn't stick with me. I really didn't believe that detail. It just I felt like they just threw it in there just to add a conflict as far as Dr. Amala discovering the C.T.E thing went. So for me, there's those little inconsistent details that ultimately don't make Concussion glue completely the way that you would want it to glue. Another negative I had about the movie is it was very slow paced in the third act. There's a time in the movie where it just kind of loses steam. It gets really tense and really tense and really tense. And then when we get to that third act, it's really, really slow and it runs out of things to do and it just slowly reaches its conclusion. It just loses the momentum that it had in the first two acts that were very well paced. And I have no idea how the third act became so incredibly slow paced. So in a way, the film loses its steam in the third act. So for my overall rating of Concussion, I'm going to give this film an 8.5 out of 10. It's a very well done film with a lot to say about both Dr. Amala and NFL's side of C.T.E. It explored the professional and personal side of Dr. Amala. The medical science is explained correctly, accurately, and easily to the audience. It's a tense and curious film that works very well, but it has some inconsistent details, especially when it comes to lab budgets. That part really didn't make sense to me. And the slow pacing in the third act, I thought, weared the film down. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. I do think it is worth checking out. I think it's definitely worth checking out if you like that argument of do we value life or money more, or what can and can't we do when it comes to football players and athletes in general being allowed to play when they have an injury, and when they reach a certain injury, can they play more after that? So the film does explore those a lot. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. I think it's a very good movie. If you get a chance, make sure to see Concussion. It's actually a very good movie.